Pump up the volume on your parenting with Parent Pump Radio. Tune into something different that makes a difference. At Parent Pump Radio, instead of a ripple, we choose to create a splash. Get energized, get inspired, and get informed with how to parent in the new millennium. With your host and parent coach super guide, Jacqueline T.D. Wynn.
This is Jacqueline T.D. Wynn. Welcome to Parent Pump Radio. Our show is all about dynamic family leadership and leaving a profound legacy for our children. And this year, we've added family financial freedom as a major topic. We want to help families learn, act, and implement strategies to become financially free. Our show is available on iTunes, YouTube, Google Play, and Stitcher, and syndicated on rethinkradio.org, oneideaway.com, and Armed Radio. I have my 2 books available on Amazon. The first one is the amazing itty bitty book on family leadership, and the second one just came out in March. It's called True Legacy Wealth, Creating Generational Wealth Through Real Estate Investing. So go to Amazon and get those books. Contact me at info@integrativeminds.com for your free strategy session. So let's go on to our show, because I think we all want to work smarter and create massive passive income, right? Our guest today is a self-made freedom lifestyle entrepreneur, seasoned investor, and international speaker. He's been investing in real estate for almost 30 years and has been involved in several other entrepreneurial ventures. He's a regular contributor in the media with his extensive background in business, entrepreneurship, and real estate. As a heart-centered entrepreneur, his passion is giving back to the entrepreneurial community to help people make informed, educated business decisions to build long-term passive income and wealth for themselves and their family. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to Mike Wolf. Hi, Mike.
Hello there. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. I know you're a globe-trotting machine, so we never know when we can get you.
I'm glad we got this time. We coordinated something. This is good.
It was supposed to be a few weeks before, and then I had something that came up, and then we were almost made it last week, but then we got the time mixed up again.
Yeah, that's the problem with traveling, is the time zones. I don't know. It's confusing, but we got it to work this time, so I'm very excited.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about you, where you came from, and how you got to this passive income and helping people with it.
Oh boy, wow, where do I start? So if we were having this interview 15 years ago, it would have looked a lot different, because back then, I remember I was a workaholic, and I remember there were lots of days where I was a very successful real estate investor if you use the financials as the metric to determine success. So I was making a lot of money, but there were lots of days where I would leave home and my daughter would be sleeping. I'd come home, it would be dark out again, and my daughter was sleeping, and I missed a lot. There were a lot of days where I missed seeing her growing up. And back in those days, I thought, well, if we take a week or 2 vacation, where they got my, her and my then wife got my undivided attention, it would make up for it. And if I could go back in time, I would never, ever think that way. So anyway, 3 years ago, I had my first of 2. I didn't. My daughter had my first of 2 grandsons that I now have. And it was such a different picture, because literally, within that 20-year period between my daughter being born and my first grandson being born, I could take as much time as I wanted. I could literally spend every day, all day, until my daughter would get sick of me and kick me out with my grandson if I wanted to. And that's because I changed a lot of the ways I do business. I changed I put a lot of systems in place, and basically went from being a solopreneur doing everything to delegating. Now I delegate almost everything. And so I went from a workaholic to a playaholic. And let me tell you, when I was a workaholic, I didn't actually mind it. If it weren't for the fact I wasn't seeing my daughter and wasn't paying attention to my health and all that stuff didn't really faze me back then. It was all about, hey, how do you make more money? But if I could, if I could go back in time, the things I'm going to teach my grandkids are to work smart, not to work hard.
Yeah, we hear that, but what does that really mean? Can you explain this?
Absolutely. So what that means is that instead of you doing all the work, it's using leverage. So whether it be, leveraging other people's skills, other people's time, basically taking yourself out of the equation as much as possible and only doing the things that require you, that you're good at, that are your gifts, and that you're passionate about, and having other people using their gifts. There's a lot of stuff. I have people on my team. I have accountants on my team, and I can't imagine a more boring job in the world. And nothing against accountants. We're just wired differently. An accountant, but there's people that get lit up about doing that sort of thing, and they would hate to do what I do. So you want the people on your team that can do the things that you're not really necessarily good at, that they actually are passionate about doing. And getting the right people on your team and having the right systems in place makes all the difference. And then on top of that, as you make money, is making that money work hard for you, so that instead of you trading your time to make more, let your money attract more money. And that's really what I've gotten good at, those two things, building teams and putting my money to work for me. That's made all the difference, and that really changed, that in that 20-year period, those are the things that changed the most.
How does the mindset play into actual wealth that people see in their checkbook?
Well, the biggest thing I think is that most entrepreneurs, when we come up with our entrepreneurial idea, it's kind of like giving birth. And much like a baby, you don't just want anybody to go and hold your baby, at least not at first. And so most entrepreneurs, they start off as I did, as a solopreneur, where we do everything, and we try to get good at every single position within all the things that need to be done. So as a real estate investor, I would go and try to find deals. I try to find sellers, and I try to find buyers, and I deal with getting contractors and collecting rent, and dealing with those phone calls at 2 a.m. from tenants with a leaky toilet. And on Christmas Day, every year a furnace breaks on Christmas Day, when you can't find somebody to go and fix it. So these are things that we all try to deal with on our own when we first start. We all just think that nobody else can do it as well as we can, and that's really one of the things that most entrepreneurs have is we have this control thing, where we think that nobody can possibly do it as well as we can. And so that's the first phase. The second phase, so what happened with me is I am originally from Canada, and originally I did all my real estate in Calgary, Canada. And then a friend of mine, he moved to Las Vegas, and I went and I'd go visit him like once a month or once every 2 months. And most people go to Vegas, they had a much different addiction than I do. I'm not really a gambler, and I'm not necessarily a big party animal drinker. But when I go to, especially back then, when I go to a new city, I have to look at real estate. If there's an open house, I'm there. I got to go look at homes. So that was my addiction. So I'd keep looking at these properties. And, back in those days, the homes kept going up and up and up, because a lot of people from California, especially, were moving to Las Vegas to lower their cost of living. So I started now investing in not only 2 different cities, but 2 different countries at the same time. And so I was forced to now put the first person on my team. I had to hire a property manager, because at the end of the month, you can't collect rent in 2 different cities. So I reluctantly hired a property manager, but I made it so that he had to call me with everything that went wrong. I needed to know every little detail. And I remember there was one week where he called me, I think it was a Monday, he called me and said, "Mike, the fridge is broken at 123 Main Street. What should I do?" And so I told him, well, see what it costs to fix it. If it's over a certain amount, then we replace it. And then he called me like 2 days later on Wednesday and said, "Mike, there's a dishwasher broken." And I gave him the exact same answer. I said, well, if it costs a certain amount, let's see what it costs to fix it. If it's over a certain amount, let's fix it. And he was forced to call me, because that was what I put in place. That was the rules that I gave him. And so I went from being a solopreneur to a micromanager. And I realized I was spending just as much time, talking to him and babysitting him as I did actually doing the job myself. And so it kind of dawned on me when I had those 2 calls pretty much back to back, that what if I just put a system in place? Every time an appliance breaks, this is what we do. And if it costs more than a certain amount, we do this. And if it's under a certain amount, we do that. And so that was my very, very first system, and my very first person on my team. And then I started to realize that he was much better at what he did than what I did. So when I was managing my own properties in Canada, I thought the best way to do that is to become friendly with the tenants. And I thought, if you're friendly with a tenant, how would they possibly, they would never want to rip you off or not pay you on time, because they're my friend, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's what I thought. That was a misconception, because when they are friendly with you, then they know they can get away with a lot more. And so, they'd always call me and say, "Hey, Mike, you know what? I don't get paid till Friday. Can you wait till Friday for me to pay your rent?" And I'd go, okay, whatever, sure, Friday's fine. And then Friday would come around and, oh, my car broke down. I need another week to get some more money. And then, so now they're a week behind, and then they have another excuse and they're 2 weeks behind. Next thing you know, they're 2, 3, 4 months behind, and they're never going to pay that rent.
Yeah.
And so now you're forced to evict them, and you've gone all these months without rent. They trash your home. A property manager only gets paid when they collect rent, and a good property manager treats it like a business. So and they're going to be a little bit more fussy on the tenant because they don't get paid unless they collect that money. And so I realized that not only wasn't not taking up my time by having this property manager, he was actually doing a much better job, collecting way more rent than I ever did. And even after I paid him, 10%, which is what property managers typically charge, even after I paid him as 10%, I was still making a lot more money not doing the work than when I was trying to do it myself. And so I always had this idea in my head that, I had this wrong idea that I'm saving money by doing it myself. Well, not only was I wasting my time, I was actually costing myself money. And so once I realized this, then I started to see, well, who else could I put on my team that would, take care of the things that I do on a day-to-day basis that don't require me, and that where I'm actually not even doing as good a job as somebody who's a professional at that part of the business. So you fast forward these days, as you know, I have a turnkey operation in Atlanta. I never see any of these homes personally. I have systems in place. I've got somebody, his only job is to go schmooze bankers so that we can get good deals on properties. And so he picks out the properties, but there's a system in place. All the homes are 3 bedrooms or more, 2 bathrooms or more, double attached garage or better. They're in very specific zip codes, and it's a certain price per square foot or we don't buy it. And so he knows exactly what he needs to do. Once he gets those properties, he calls up our inspectors. They go and inspect the home. Once they're done their thing, they get a list that they send out to the contractors. They fix all the things on the list, and then the property manager fills it with a tenant and collects rent. And then I've got affiliates all over the world that are selling these properties for me. So this business pretty much runs better with, I semi-jokingly say, I make more money the less I work. And it's actually true, because if I were to go to Atlanta right now and go try to micromanage my team, I would actually slow them down, and they're actually all better at what they do than I have ever been at what they do. So I make a lot more money doing a lot less. When I'm hanging out with my grandkids, I'm making more money and having way more fun than I ever did working really, really hard.
Wow. Yeah. We're kind of somehow taught that we can do it all, that control means somehow that the more control you have, the better it is. But when we're able to let go is when we realize we actually have more power when we let go.
Absolutely. That's huge. And it's a really tough thing to do as an entrepreneur, to give up that control and be trusting with other people. But once you can learn to do that, and once you have the right people on your team to implement the things that need to be done, when you have the proper people, life gets a lot better. So I spend a lot of my time volunteering, doing humanitarian things, and doing the things that really make a difference. And one of the things that I teach my students is that we never really think about, and we never think, I hope Jacqueline doesn't breathe too much oxygen, because you don't have a scarcity mindset around oxygen yet. It's the most important thing that we've got. We can't live without it, but we never really think about it because it's so abundant. So when you get your business on autopilot, when you have your money on autopilot, so it comes in, to go back to the Vegas example again, I'm not really a gambler, but if I went to Vegas and I lost every dime at the casino, at the end of the month for my rental properties, a bunch of money would come back and fill up my bank account again. And so when you have, when you have your money on autopilot, where you're not worried about it, where there's no scarcity, and it's an abundant thing, then you can really focus on the things that matter, like your relationships and giving back and helping other people, your health. And these are all the things that most workaholics don't have time for. They put all that stuff to the wayside. They think, oh, one day I'll focus on my health. Once I have this much money, I'll focus on that. Well, that never happens. Even if you manage to get whatever that amount of money is, when you have that amount of money, your spending's also gone up. And that's not enough. You're always going to be chasing money. So you have to get out of that mindset, and you have to switch it and start. My currency is happiness and fulfillment every day. As you know, I travel pretty much full time.
I'm going to ride in your suitcase one day, just for like a month.
But every day, if I'm not in my happy place, I'll jump on a plane and I'll put myself in my happy place. And so sometimes quite often it's weather related because I don't like cold, which is why I make a really bad Canadian.
I'm from the tropics, so yes, I'm there with you.
So it's not fair that you're from, but anyway, we'll talk about that later. But really at the end of the day, I changed my currency from money to happiness and fulfillment. And that's what I think we need to teach our kids and our grandkids is that's what you should ultimately be chasing after, not dollars. I'm not saying money is not important because it is, but once you figure out how to put that on autopilot, I like to call it indestructible wealth, where it keeps coming back, and you do things that create recurring revenue, and you have teams that go collect that money so that it's passive. So when you have that passive income, and once you get that figured out and it exceeds all your expenses and you can do whatever you want, then you can focus on the things that
that matters.
Right? So
right.
exactly.
I'm thinking I want to be where you are. Most people are thinking that's where I want to be. But then probably there's lots of people out there, right? They're doing the 9 to 5 grind. They're still back where you started. What advice would you give them to just take that one step forward to head towards where you are now?
My biggest advice would be to start putting some money away. And I know when you are in the 9 to 5 world, that's not always easy, but pay yourself first, even if it's a small amount, start putting it away, make your money start working for you. And I'd also recommend, if you're in the 9 to 5 world, think about what some of your gifts are, some of the things that you're really good at. And I think everybody should have their own business of some sort, even if it's something on the side. Because and I'm not an accountant, so disclaimer. But when somebody who has a 9 to 5 job gets in their car and they drive to work, they can't write that expense off.
Right, absolutely.
If I go visit them at their work, I'm writing it off because that's a business expense. And so having a business is really important. I'd say start thinking about what you're really gifted at and preferably something that you're really passionate about too, and try to figure out a way to turn your hobby somehow into a business. Maybe most people, they have one thing that they're really good at that people come to you and seek advice on. So for me, obviously money, real estate, entrepreneurship, people come to me for that, and try to create an online course around your hobby, and magic starts to happen when you put stuff out there into the universe, and you'd be surprised. A lot of people really downplay their gifts because it's a gift. We got it with no effort. And we think, oh, well, doesn't everybody know how to do this? Well, they don't. To me, this real estate stuff seems really simple to me, at least now after 30 years of doing it. But it's not. This stuff isn't common knowledge, and so take the stuff that that isn't common knowledge, turn that into some sort of business, and start at least getting some write-offs. Hopefully, be able to sell some stuff, make some money while you're sleeping. But also, once you start to get some money, make that money work for you. Because people spend their whole time, trading their time for that paycheck. And eventually, unfortunately, as we get older, it gets tougher and tougher to give up that time. Our circumstances change, our health changes, and so start thinking of different ways to create passive income. And also, there's so many ways. A lot of people come to me, they say, "Well, I can't start in real estate because I've got no money." And I can tell you that I started off with no money. Also, I was a starving university student when I did my first real estate deal. But there's actually strategies where you can get homes for pennies on the dollar. You can there's lots of ways to get started. Remember, I'll give people access to my passive income masterclass. Maybe that'll inspire a few people.
Yeah, how do they do that?
We'll give them a link because I don't know offhand.
Okay, I'll put the link in the show notes.
Yeah, we'll put a link in there for that. I was just going to say it's so important, and as you mentioned earlier, we get taught at a young age that get out there, go work hard. And I just think it's a shame because I think that there's, I wouldn't really wear a badge of honor saying I worked so hard that I became a workaholic. Yet, to me, I thought back in the days when I was doing it, I felt like I was doing the right thing. And had I known then what I know now, life would have been so different.
There are still a lot of people in that generation. I think it's an older generation mindset where if you're not working at least 40, 60, 80 hours a week, then you're not successful somehow. Hard work is what gets you there. When I talk to people like you, they have a whole different paradigm in the way they think, in the way they act, in the way they feel. There's this lightness as opposed to talking to some of the people that I've spoken to.
Right.
Let's get into what you do in real estate and how you help people get started, because you have a very unique system.
Right. A number of different ways. Back in the old days, I just used to do real estate for myself. And I, at some point, have done pretty much every strategy known to man surrounding real estate investing. But it's kind of funny. When I started, I was 24 years old, and most of my friends thought I was nuts and I would never succeed. And when I did start to succeed, all of a sudden, all my friends wanted to take me to Starbucks and pick my brain. And they thought, over a coffee, I'd be able to teach them everything that I know. And even if I could, transplant my brain in their head, give them all my knowledge, if you don't have the teams, if you don't have the systems, you don't have the resources, it doesn't always work. And so, I realized that a lot of people want the benefits of real estate investing, but they don't necessarily want to go do all the work that's involved. There's a lot of running around involved in being successful at that. So I started, instead of just buying, 3 or 4 or 5 properties for myself, I would buy 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 properties for myself. And so I started to help my friends buy, I'd buy these homes, I'd get them fixed up for them, and put tenants in place and take care of all the moving parts, because I had the teams to do that. And so I went from just working for myself to now helping myself and my friends. Well, then my friends' friends started to call me, and then I started to buy 12, 13, 14 properties at a time, and I helped myself, my friends, and my friends' friends. And then I got asked a lot of the same questions over and over. So I created a YouTube channel and started, I put a lot of content surrounding the most frequently asked questions about real estate investing. And now I literally have, I get calls from people all over the world wanting to invest in real estate. So I've got my turnkey operation that I mentioned earlier, where you don't have to be an expert in real estate. You don't have to know how to pick a market, how to build a team, how to do all those things that have to come together in order to do a successful real estate transaction. But then I also have some people, they want to be hands-on. They want to be on the front lines, do what I used to do, and that's actually work hard with this. And so I actually do trainings where I teach people different strategies. So for example, I've got one where I teach tax deeds. And what a tax deed is where somebody hasn't paid their property tax in 3 or 4 years. Eventually the county needs that money to pay for their police force or fire department, keep the schools open, etc. And so eventually they got to auction off these properties. And you can get these properties. One of my students picked up a property recently in Houston, Texas, for $7,200. So like I said, you don't necessarily have to have a lot of money, but you need to know some of the different strategies that are out there. So I teach stuff on that. I teach, basically how to get started, but I also do it with a twist. So for example, that tax deed course, not only do I teach you how to do it, but then I also give you a team on the ground in Houston, Texas, so that you can actually do this from anywhere in the world. I've got one student in Australia who participates at that auction. The auction takes place on the first Tuesday of every month. But you can do this from the comfort of your own home, because I've got teams set up and I give my students those teams. And so I teach people how to take strategies that usually involve a lot of work, and I teach you how to do how to delegate to the team. So the team's already there for you, but I teach you basically how to be the quarterback. You have to make the decisions, decide which properties make sense to bid on, and what your maximum bid is going to be. And that's the stuff that I teach you. I do a 4-day training on that. But I teach a lot of different courses around money, different types of investments, and of course, real estate and passive income is my favorite. So that's my most common event. Exactly.
Yeah. So you have online training and you have in-person training also.
I'm actually creating some new online courses. I had some, but I really wanted to update them. So I'm actually going to take some time off to just go and revamp everything. Because a lot of these courses were I created back when I worked a lot harder. And so now I'm putting a new twist on it. How do you delegate a lot of this stuff, and what things do you need to do, and what things should you not be doing, and have other professionals helping you with. So I'm revamping all my online stuff. But live trainings, I do usually about 2 or 3 of them a year. I don't do too many anymore. I actually stopped doing the tax deed when I was telling you about. I actually stopped doing it when my daughter got pregnant, because I was trying to give myself even more time. And one of my students, who has a really big following online, he's the one who actually picked up that $7,200 property. And he shot a video saying, I want to give a big shout out to my mentor, Mike Wolf. And all of a sudden I had all these people calling, when's your next course? When's your next course? He didn't have a next course. So after taking a 2-year hiatus, I did my first event, after 2 years. And when I was doing it, I realized how much I missed teaching, because like I said, I took it off my plate for a little bit and I really loved doing it. but I don't like to teach as much as I used to teach. Sometimes I do 7, 8 events in a year. Now it's like 2 or 3. So I kind of toned it down a little bit, but they're really fun events.
Do you do it all over the world, or is it just in the United States and Canada?
I do my biggest events usually in the United States, because that's where, in my opinion, the best opportunities are right now. So I do some trainings in Atlanta, and then I show people behind the scenes at my operation and how I built it, and I teach them how they can duplicate that, maybe not on the same scale, or if they want to do it on the same scale, absolutely. Most of them aren't quite there yet. And in Houston, Texas is where I teach, things like the tax deeds and the auctions and foreclosure auctions, because that's my personal favorite auction, and that's where my team is set up for my students. So we do most of our trainings there as well.
What's the website that people can go to get more information?
Yeah, they can go to MikeWolfMastery.com. So that's wolf, just like the animal, MikeWolfMastery.com.
You have a very easy name too.
Well, it's kind of funny because you think it was easy, but I guarantee you somebody is going to put an E on the end of wolf, even though I said just like the animal. So
that's WOLF.
WOLF. But yeah, people always mess that up. So you think it was easy, but not so easy.
Okay. Well, not like
mine. Not easier than yours, though. Yours is really tricky.
Yeah, right. I probably just changed it to phonetically, but it's, goes generations back, so I can't.
We'll let it slide then.
Yeah. And so the mastery course we'll put also in the show notes for people to click on the link. And thank you so much. I appreciate you sharing, everything.
No, thanks for having me here. It's my pleasure. We'll do it again.
Yeah, we'll do it again. And hopefully we'll be celebrating with you at the top of the mountain.
Love it.
Okay, thank you, listeners. And until next time, keep on learning and always keep on growing. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Go to parentpumpradio.com and click on the pink box on the top of our homepage to listen to our new and archived shows. To be instantly notified of new episodes, subscribe to our RSS feed. The RSS feed button is located at the top of the page where all our shows are featured. And after listening to the show, go to parentpumpradio.com or our Facebook page to leave your comments, questions, and topic suggestions. Until next time, have a wonderful week.